Good morning, my neighbors. Welcome to another episode of BYTTT. Before you take the trade, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button. It works that whole entire YouTube algorithm and helps your boy. That said, we got a lot of work to do. Let's get to the screen. The first thing I want to point out is what a recovery by the market, right? It's amazing that we kind of had this push right back up. When I was playing this with the opening range, I was playing it to this upside, and I tried to get some more, and I wanted all this smoke, but oh boy, that thing did not want to play with me. That thing was just messing around, kind of toying around, especially around here. Should have probably accumulated there, but it's all good. The game is designed a certain way, and I'm kind of happy with the trades that I did take. We're probably going to go ahead and try to get through this 440, but it's going to be tough. We got a massive order block right here, and this thing is not easy. So going to be very interested on seeing what's going on. But the EMAs are starting. We got golden crosses, we got major crosses, we got stochastics, MACDs. Everything is pointing to the upside. So we're probably going to get ourselves a green day, at least before we get into the news. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and get into oil. Oil is pulling back to the downside. I do think that they're trying to get into this lower area. I really want to see what happens. I do have my alerts set at like 63.29. That's what I've been trying to eyeball. I have a feeling it's going to get there, especially after this major rejection. I don't think oil has the strength. A nice little reset back into probably here. Right, somewhere around here would be probably key to kind of get a nice little rebound, because you can see there's a nice bounce, and then this nice bounce created that move. So I think a nice test into this area, or even here. Let's just call it even lower than that. I mean, a little bit higher than that. Let's not be too greedy, right? Let's just say it gets to this level. This level is just as key as well, which gives you a psychological $60. Gets you to that like 59-ish, and those that are still in from this bounce and this bounce, they're protected, so they don't have to panic, and then you get this entire bounce. So one of these two levels is going to be where oil bounces off of. If this thing kind of continues to the downside, I do have some reservations that it can, but we'll see how that goes. Over here is gold, and I explained to y'all that gold was going to go ahead and attempt some of this upside, but it hit the brakes right here, which is a little annoying, to be honest, because I've been waiting for this wedge to kind of break out. I want to go ahead and start playing some of this cascading effect and just go ahead and keep pushing to the upside, assuming that we could get to 3,600. So we'll see what happens there. Silver, it is building a nice little base here. And you can see it got to that level, which is their fair value gap test again, which is also the fair value gap that we closed into. I think this is just temporary, right? Let me get my alerts out your way. I think that this is just temporary. I think we're going to get ourselves a very, very strong push up. And I think this is going to be our turn to get up into that $40 level that I was explaining to y'all before. So we'll see what happens. Again, this is a bearish divergence, hence the pullback and all that stuff. Is the bearish divergence over? We don't know. So this thing can make a leg lower based on those parameters, but given the fact that we're still here, we could get a push. Here's the British pound. British pound did complete their head and shoulders. We get a little bit of a pullback for that, and I won't be surprised if they continue to make pressure, but we'll see what happens there. Again, bullish British pound makes a bearish dollar, which should push NQ, ES, and Russell back up to the upside. So we'll see what happens there. We got Bitcoin. Bitcoin is playing around a little bit. I know. Some of y'all want to see 125. which I talked about a lot. But the problem that we faced was they wanted to test this fair value gap. They gave it one test, and this second test, oh my God, they just fell right through it. You got this whole entire drop from Friday going into Saturday that made us get to that 112 level. And I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, and I was like, wow, I was thinking 114, 113, and 112 was a possibility, but hey, in 2 days it happened, so I guess we're here. And he was like, well, the 112 is just a place for them to reload, which I think that is the case. But given this, we didn't get a nice little explosion right back through it, and we haven't placed any new fair value gaps, kind of like what this action is. I won't be surprised that everybody's sitting and waiting and watching to see if they are going to get a better price. It's just smart money management. That's all. This is your Russell. Russell. Ooh, I didn't even notice Russell did all of that. I wonder if Merck did all that. Anyways, so Russell has a nice little push. We are finally through that block that I was telling y'all about. Where's that block? Oh, this was during that Friday, and now we're back to where this block is going to get difficulty. Let me go ahead and mark that off. Somewhere around here is going to be a very tough spot, but this is a nice little recovery to kind of see if the Russell can take on that challenge. I did have a level of this 212, and I do have 240 for us to go ahead and test those areas. If they test it, then there's a possibility we're going to test that area as well. And then last one is not the NASDAQ. It's the dollar, the infamous and undeniable dollar, right? So we got ourselves a Morningstar that's trying to form right here. Massive sell-off right here. And I wonder, because they already went through the bullish side of the MACD, if they can actually make sure that this bullish side kind of holds. We're on top of an order block. So this is a sound kind of move that you want to see from a reversal. The only thing that's a challenge is it didn't touch the order block. Consider it like a break and retest. So this was the area that was trouble, turned into support, later on resistance, try to get up there, turn it to resistance to make that lower low, put in a bearish divergence saying, oh my God, we're not strong enough to get down here. And then it pushes right back up to here. So the question is the bullish divergence just come for retest so that way it can continue and be like the momentum is that side? Very possible, which will make the market continue to play to the downside. But again, this is the dollar. It rejected a psychological 100, which is that dollar level right here. This could be just a retest for them to go ahead and trap more bulls and start really liquidating them all the way back down. So just keep that in mind. All right, so go ahead and pull out a pen and a pad, because I'm going to go ahead and give you the news, and it's coming in hot. So, all right, so we got exports right here. We got balance of trade that's right here. Global PMI, this is going to be pretty critical as well, 945. Even though we're going to get some export information with balance of trade at 8:30. So look for 945 to kind of get a reaction, probably adverse to whatever action we get off on the 8:30 news. And then we got ISM PMI at 10 o'clock. So then it could kind of zigzag. If you feel like it's very choppy, you may want to consider just taking a step back in the market because those global information like ISM, PMIs, those things are things that affects price on a consumer basis, and that can really make some of the investors react based on those parameters. They might find it safer. Again, I kind of warned you out a couple days ago that they might go run over to bonds. Bonds are going to release numbers. We have been on all-time highs. They could park their money inside bonds and guarantee a year from now, whatever money they put inside of that, especially if the interest rate shoots up above 4, maybe like 3.975, it might be attractive because it's going to be higher than the last bond auction that they did. But if it ends up staying in line with this, I could see us just staying inside the equities because they're going to wait until the bonds give them a very good interest rate so that way they can be able to park their money there for a year. And then we got a 3-year note as well. Of course, each time it's guaranteed money, of course. So the more longer they borrow the money, the lower the interest rate. But you just want to see on the actual that this number ends up shooting up. That would then turn around and make it bullish for the dollar, and we're probably going to get some drops on our equity side. All right, so let's go ahead and keep this going. Let's just cover Wednesday. We're going to get mortgage interest rates and their application in the documents. Let's kind of get a gauge of who's applying and what is the rate. We're going to get oil inventory, hence the reason why I think today's oil action might not really dump the way I think it's going to, and they're going to wait for the news to really dump it. 17-week bill auction, 10-year note, that's another one that is going to be very critical. 4.3, actually, that might not be too bad. Maybe they wait for Wednesday. They're probably going to get more interest rate. Again, you're going to be locking it in for 10 years. So whatever money you put in there, you cannot touch it because it is a bond and you're lending it to other services, especially to the U.S., so that way they can be able to repay it back with interest. All right. So that's Wednesday's news. So let's go ahead and get into some of the stuff that we're going to be discussing. So I don't have that much of news. I just got 2 articles that is for today. Let's start with this one. The chart shows Tesla shares could be on a verge of a big swing, Katie Stockton says. Now, I'm not saying that she's wrong. To be honest, I did find Tesla being around that 302 level being highly questionable. Let's go check it out on the charts. Let's see what's happening over there. Okay, so we kind of bounced up a little bit off of that 302. Let me go ahead and come over a little bit. So we pushed down to 299 come Friday, and then we was like around 302 when I last saw it, 303, somewhere around there. I found it kind of questionable being here. And if we go to the weekly, right, this is what really makes me doubt that there's any more downside in Tesla. Let me get rid of this opening range. All right, this is a nice wedge action. They did not miss badly on earnings. I know you're probably gonna be like, well, Jeff, it pays less than $1 on the EPS. I do agree, but for some reason, this one is very radioactive, like a radioactive roach. It's just you could try to crush it and short sell this as much as possible. It's just not going to relatively work. Do they have a moat? It's being affected from the EV side, but again, they do have a lot on the AI side. They do have their SpaceX. They do have their Boring company that's doing a lot more research into robotics. So it's like they have so much other things that you can't look at this purely on an EV play, and that's the part that confuses a lot of analysts when it's all said and done. I see an order block that's sitting right here that needs to be tested. We haven't tested this since May of 2025, and we've tested it here at June, and when we tried to get up here, we just had nothing but selling pressure. So I do believe that this order block, it has a lot of questions that it needs to answer, right? And that's our start of our wedge. And then as far as on the bullish side, this is their relative support. So you got this area here, and you could kind of see they tested it multiple times. So this could be an accumulation phase, and they're scaling themselves out using the 50 EMA on the weekly as support. Yes, I do agree. Stochastics in the bottom. MACD is here. But with the MACD being above the bullish side, there's a strong possibility we could get a continuation, and you see how thin this is. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Would I play it with my money? No. Would I play it with your money? No. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a fiduciary. But I will say this. If you think that Tesla is a strong stock and it's something that you want to invest in, this wouldn't be a bad idea if it breaks above that 360, 370 area and breaks out of this trend line. If you want to be aggressive, maybe around 330, 340, somewhere around there, just to get confirmation that this is going our way. All right, so just keep that in mind. Let's keep this going. Last article that we have is Disney can see big earnings growth ahead that will power the stock higher, Morgan Stanley says. Now, Morgan Stanley probably has a little bit more credence than Katie Stockton, but I think anybody that just goes and gives this information is selling the news, okay? Right now, I do believe in buy the rumor, sell the news. So I think when we go over to this Disney chart, that this is probably going to top out. It's probably a little toppy. Oh, they're getting ready for earnings. Okay, so this could be a nice little setup for some truth to it, right? Um, kind of, it's in the rumor mill if you really want to go ahead and say that. But this released early in the morning yesterday. So this probably, that information is probably what fueled this whole entire push up, coming from $1.17. That's $1.17. Coming down, coming up from 117 all the way up to 119, where it's almost at 120 with the pre-market. Now, this is a lot of junk to get through, and since earnings is going to be on Wednesday in the morning, I don't think this is the risk that you want to take. Now, is there trades that you could take during the time frame when earnings is about to release and you could go ahead and take that shot? I would say just mind your margins and mind your risk, right? If I'm going to do it and I have like 100K in the bank account, I'll throw $100 on a contract and see what happens. You never know. That $100 probably turn into 1,000. But is it guaranteed? I don't see anything, and earnings can be very, very unpredictable. So I wouldn't suggest you doing that, especially if you're new to trading. So the goal behind this is to just basically explain to y'all, I do think there is some upside here. I do think there was a little bit of a W action that was being built here. I do think that the golden cross on the weekly is going to pan out for a ticker like a Disney. Where I have my reservations is the fact that at the end of the day, with inflation, that's the one that drove them down. Being in a real estate type, because again, Disney, you got to look at it in so many factors, right? One, it's a asset because they have so many assets from the digital side, hence the reason why they did their Disney Plus and pulled all this stuff from Netflix, so that way they can have their own streaming services and charge their own monthly fee, which makes logical sense. But the fun thing, if you really, really, really want to compile it, is that with their Disneyland and all their Disney World in the US, and then all their Disney theme parks outside in the world, those are assets. They usually own the land where they sit on, especially Disney World. They're always expanding there. So this is kind of like a borderline real estate play. And if you really think about it, real estate is at its almost all-time high, possible bubble, at least that's what the researchers are saying. So this is probably why there's a lot of stagnation over at Disney. Have they hampered and staved off the losses? They do pay dividends. I don't like it, but it is what it is. I would say for the most part, yes. If we go over to their earnings, especially with their cash flow, they're generating 4.8 billion as of last quarter in cash flow, free cash flow, so that way they can go ahead and make certain investments and expand. Now the question is, where are they going to expand? What's the next leg? Is it new Marvel movies? Like, there's so many question marks that are here. Let's go to their income statement. Their income statement, you have net income, $3.27 billion in net income. When I see something like this, it makes me interested because look at it just continuously grow. Actually, let me scroll that up. I can't see it, right? So it's growing as of the fourth quarter of 2024 going into 2025. So I think that's what's rallying this up, and I'm very curious on how this pans out. EPS, let's go back over to EPS. You can kind of see EPS is $1.88, a nice little surprise of 145, and then right here 145 is their goal with a revenue of 23 billion. That makes me think that they might stay in line, which will allow this thing to stay on path. If it ends up failing on the EPS side, then whatever surprise is there is going to be relatively moot and it might drop. But can this still pan out as a W? Absolutely. If you want to know what you want to aim for, I always measure. This is our measurement. Let me go ahead and put this from my other one. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Bain. There we go. All right. 50% of the move will bring us to like 136. That is a level I would be curious if it can go from 120 to 136. That's probably going to be the first TP of the market. All right. So today we got quite a few things that I want to cover. A lot of earnings is coming in. It's a very loaded week. So if y'all don't know how earnings kind of cycles, let me give you a little tidbit. The second month is always the busiest because the first quarter is coming off a quad witching. First month is coming off a quad witching, so there's a little bit of a tippy toe, and especially mostly tech is in that. And then right now we're getting some of the bulk of everybody else that's coming in. So the first one we're going to be covering is Mar, which is Marriott. I think we already covered Hilton. So this is Marriott here. It looks like we're putting in what could be an M pattern. And the second week, because everybody's coming off the end of July, going into the first week of August, the second week is usually everything is kind of loaded, right? So I would say by this time next month, you're going to start to see it's nothing but fumes as far as the type of earnings. Just depends on what sector. But right now, this is probably the best time for you to kind of make your decisions because everything is going to start to flow going into September. So that's why this part is very, very important. So Marriott, I think more downside is very possible. We got a strong 2 candle order block that's sitting right here. There's so many ways of doing order blocks, but let's just take these 2 candles. Very strong order block that's sitting right there that it rejected from what was a previous support. They're trying to break through it, which they closed below it right here on this week. Let's go on the daily and see how this looks. Yeah, so we had a golden cross that just reject right before it got to the block, and then we got ourselves a nice little curl. So we kind of have an M pattern that panned out here to another M pattern that's trying to break its neckline right here. I would say psychological 250 is probably what they're looking for. If this thing can hold, then you probably be just okay. But again, their earnings is going to be in the morning today, so we'll see how the market responds to that. PFE on the other hand, I don't like to play PFE only because of their shares floated. I think I said that yesterday. 5 billion. It's just tough to play. What is it setting up? It looks like we're kind of building a little bit of a base here. They just paid dividends not too long ago, and that's kind of quick. So they're trying to keep shareholders in the stock. You guys see, right? They do this in between thing. So earnings after earnings, dividends after earnings, dividends before earnings, dividend after earnings, dividend before. You can kind of see the pattern, right? So I think a lot of shareholders are waiting to see before they already got paid their dividends. Possibly payout is pay date is this, but ex dividend. Wow, that is jerkish. Normally it's ex dividend. Really, that's quite a distance away. So you're not going to get your money until September 2nd. So this could have a very adverse reaction. Again, what drugs do they have in their pipeline? They're falling off because there's so many knockoffs on Viagra. They already lost. I want to say that their patent is over, if I'm not mistaken. But again, this is the game right now. This is what we're looking at. So I think this is more like a bearish move for the most part. They try to get above the 200 EMA so many times. There was a failure here, here, and here. So we got a nice little downward trend that's happening from here to here. And the reaction that we're getting right now is based on that angle. So I don't know. Don't see much upside here. Maybe get some more downside. I don't think their earnings is going to be strong. We'll see. All right. Tonight is going to be AMD. This is what everybody's kind of like waiting for. AMD has been rocketing off something relatively nice. Kind of looks like a NVIDIA. I do believe that it's going to have a little bit of a struggle getting back into that 227-ish area, but a psychological level of 200 could be tested, so just keep that in mind if you're in this and considering taking profit. SMCI, this is another semiconductor play that is not Intel, so it does a lot better. Anyways, my bad. Sorry, Intel. So we got ourselves a nice little push. It's probably going to try to get into the center pivot at around $66. I think it's going to reject before that, so we'll see how that works, but it does look like a W to try to go up to that upside. MGen, this one is also one that I'm curious of what's drugs in their pipeline. See, normal dividend play and not playing around with games like Pfizer, right? This one, their earnings is going to be released. Oh, $5 per share. That's their dividends. Not bad, but it could be better. But this is a very, very interesting ticker because if you really think about it, this is what you're worrying about. about of order block that's trying to get through here. This thing's crossing the zero line on the weekly. Let's see what the daily looks like. We're already on the bullish side and we already reset, and this looks like a morning star with a golden cross. Is this the test? Could we get a push up? Very possible. Look out for MGM for more upside. It does look like it's setting up for one. Upstart. This is Upstart right here. I'm a little upset with Upstart. It did get into the 76 and 77 as far as Friday. It could have been a pullback just for them to wait for earnings. Very possible. I just did not want to be the one holding the bag. I thought we could get back into the 69. Thought about getting back in yesterday, but I did give it up for a purpose. So I'm going to wait for Upstart. But again, I had a high strike, so I just had to take whatever money was in front of me. Maybe I should have went with something that was a little bit closer to the money, maybe even closer in the time frame, and made it more of an impactful move. But yeah, I do think Upstart can get up to $100. Just keep that in mind when you're looking at this ticker, because they are doing some really, really good things over there. Moving on, PLNT, got Planet Fitness. They're gonna have earnings in the morning. Looking for this one to kind of give a nice little pop. Now, you know what? Might not. Could they have pushed their earnings up and surprised everybody? I know I wrote this down based on parameters. All right, Wayfair, I see what you're doing over there. All right, so Palantir. Planet Fitness is actually trying to make a nice little push to the upside. It's been trailing up for a very long time. They did miss their earnings here, but again, they still return money to shareholders. I like positive EPS. So we're going to see what happens there. If they smash their earnings, this could be a nice little setup to get a push to the upside. Again, this is as of June. Most people have their summer bodies by spring. You would want to see this thing really pop up around here to show the earnings of everybody that did their New Year's resolutions and such. But this one is going to ask a lot of questions, because if they actually show up, because this thing is good revenues here, we'll see what happens there. A nice little pop into that 114 would be key. Let's go with Shopify. This one has earnings coming up very, very soon. I did think that this thing is doing an inverse head and shoulder. I think that's what it was, right? I was looking if it was a W just in case. And you could kind of see this thing is really pushing. I have a target of 133. Don't be surprised if you see Shopify hit 133. All right, the next one is Disney. We have Disney. I already explained how this is looking. They're going to have their earnings. So we're going to get this one. This one, again, looking for this thing. Get to that 130, 140. All right, DoorDash. This one's going to be reporting in the evening. This one is looking good, actually. This is not bad. I had this trend line drawn from when I was actually taking this trade, and it kind of pulled back on me. I got out of it, and it consolidated. So we got ourselves another pop-up here. It's been pushing up with lots. Not saying it's like Microsoft, but it gives me Microsoft vibes. We can make your higher highs here, but these stochastic and MACD, they might be shaving their profits here, folks. So watch out for maybe a nice little surprise down to like 240, even if they smash earnings. Just keep that in mind. Uber, this one here is going to attempt to recover what they did. They already had that bearish divergence here. Nice solid W. We played some of this here. So I'm very curious of what they're going to do at this point. A nice solid earnings. Maybe if they could come to $1 a share, that will probably pop it up. But to be honest, this is a $12 billion company. And yeah, so I would say if this thing could crawl up the MACD, maybe that's the setup for tonight. Look for Uber to probably test that $99 level to get to 100. But other than that, it might be already over. Maybe the ride's over. We'll see how it goes. So yesterday we had Palantir's earnings, and this thing shot off like a bottle rocket and jumped up $10. They probably guided really, really well. It returned to shareholders about 60 cents. $1 billion, that's what they were aiming for. So they're aiming for a 1.03, good guidance. So they're continuing on that track. We'll see what happens there. And then other things that's in the earnings cycle, let's go ahead and look at the third month as a preview. Where are you, third month? Okay. I am very curious on cybersecurity and some of the other late semiconductors like your MU, for example. So we got CrowdStrike is one of the good ones, right? They're gonna have their earnings coming up in the third month, in the second month, which is this month, going into September. This was gonna be very interesting on what they're going to do there. It's been pulling back quite a bit, so I'm curious. Can we get a nice little reversal, especially when we're talking about the AI space? You want to make sure you protect the AI space from hackers. So we're gonna see what happens. We got AVGO. This is the one that does a lot of the modems inside the cell phones. Broadcom. I think this one's gonna do relatively well this month before it gets there. MU is another in the semiconductor space. This one kind of had a nice little pullback. I thought we was going to catch it here, and then I did not take this trade for obvious reasons because it wasn't set up anything nice. But you kind of see we kind of got up into that peak. We got to the 382, and we're trying to bounce back up. I still think we could get to the 50, so we'll see how this month goes out. And then other ones like Zscaler kind of looks like this. What else I have for y'all? Zscaler, Datadog had a nice little retracement after its pop. I think they're accumulating again. They do have earnings that's going to be coming up. I'm going to cover that a little bit more in detail. What else is in cybersecurity? PanW. This one's going to be interesting. They're going to have earnings in the middle of this month too. I think this was a massive pullback. They have not really recovered too much the way I thought they would after making their split. So I'm curious on what people are thinking about PanW, but I do think that this area is going to be another accumulation, unlike tickers like CMG that does a split, and this thing is just falling like a lead weight even more. So very, very interesting. I think that's about it. Yeah, kind of gave you the recap, gave y'all everything that I have. There's not much more after that. Don't forget to hit the like, the subscribe, and the bell button, because that right there really, really helps. Go ahead and go to durandusgroup.com. I have a lot of my stuff available. If you are making money, like I said, I am not monetized, so I'm building myself up. I'm getting closer. I'm at 339 subscribers, so I want to say thank you for helping and everything that you are doing on your end and sharing to your friends. I am about 160 subscribers away to start to get to that monetized level. At least one of the tiers. I think there's another tier I gotta knock out. So we're just doing it one at a time, right? We're gonna focus one plan at a time. But I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Y'all really, really help overall to help me get to these accolades. That said, I will see y'all tomorrow. Y'all have a great trading day.